I'm Amanda Knox, and you're listening to Hard Knox. Welcome back to Who's Right. That's right, we're back with Who's Right. Chris is not in the booth with me because we need to figure out a two-camera situation. But in the meantime, welcome to Who's Right, and also happy Halloween.
If you're not familiar with Who's Right, this is a series of friendly debates where we model some healthy disagreement.
Hopefully healthy.
Yeah.
This is where Chris and I argue on camera.
Mm-hmm.
and it's apparently a really popular feature, so we're bringing it back.
Yeah, we asked the audience and they said overwhelmingly, bring back Who's Right. So moving forward on Hard Knocks, you're going to be getting Who's Right episodes once a week, and with a few Ask Amanda Anythings thrown in for good measure still.
Okay, so this week is Halloween, and what else would we talk about but death? And actually, the thing that we're going to talk about was something that was a bit inspired by a talk that our Zen master man, Koshin Kane, brought to the Zendo most recently. I was really struck by this story when he told this letter that was written by the Pope, where he described Zen and Buddhism in general as being a life-denying religion.
Yeah.
Which was fascinating to me. I guess they're a death-denying religion in the sense that they believe that no one really dies. They just their spirit goes on to live forever.
The way he phrased it was that in those Western traditions that have immortality as a part of their belief, they consider you can think of them as, say, life-affirming and death-denying. And in that binary oppositional worldview, a religion like Zen or Buddhism that is death-affirming in some sense can be seen as automatically life-denying, whereas actually it's both death-affirming and life-affirming in that yin-yang way.
And in fact, it's the very fact that it actually acknowledges that death is a thing that really makes you appreciate life all the more. So one of the things that we were discussing were the 5 remembrances. These are the things that Zen and Buddhism affirm as realities that are not necessarily affirmed in Western religious contexts that give us an appreciation for life. So they're called the 5 remembrances. The first is, I am of the nature to grow old, and there is no way to escape growing old.
Sigh.
2 is, I am the nature to have ill health. There is no way to escape having ill health. 3, I am of the nature to die. There is no way to escape death. 4, all that is dear to me and everyone I love are of the nature to change and also die, therefore. And 5, my actions are my only true belongings. I cannot escape the consequences of my actions. So, and that sort of is a conversation about karma, but ultimately is the thing that says the only thing that you really can hold on to are the things that you do in the world. That is the only thing. And that is the only thing that really has a concrete cause and effect relationship in a karmic way. But the thing that we are going to debate today is this question. Is it necessary to accept the inevitability of old age, ill health, and death to appreciate life?
Or can you live forever?
Or can you just live forever? Because we're now in a world where it's not necessarily insanity to think that you could live forever, or at least for a way longer time, and potentially without old age and ill health. So Chris, who has been down the longevity rabbit hole much more than I have, can you please describe to me what the latest is on the thinking around old age, ill health, and death?
Yeah, so a lot of this comes from David Sinclair, who's a Harvard scientist who wrote a book a few years ago called Lifespan. And he's at the forefront of research into treating aging like a disease. And he has what he calls the information theory of aging. And without getting too technical about the various mechanisms that cause aging, the broad idea is that you can think about the ways that we grow old and die in the same sort of paradigm that you think about any other disease. And if you can figure out its causes, then you can prevent that disease, you can vaccinate against it, et cetera. And there is promising research into this. There's studies that have been done with, beginning with yeast and then with mice and now with individual human organ systems. I believe they were able to reverse blindness that was caused by glaucoma, so aging-related blindness in an individual human organ system. And in the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to see attempts at entire body, entire system, age reversal, essentially. So again, if you want to dig into this stuff, there's lots of research you can find into the latest on longevity science. But the most optimistic thinkers out there are now positing things like we may be able to live hundreds and hundreds of years. We may be able to rewind our biological clocks, back to the age of 20 or 30. And we may be able to do this repeatedly with simple injections or even pills. Now, that may sound like science fiction. Treat it as something that's, if not in the next 10 years, maybe it's the next 100 years. Put the time horizon wherever you want to. But it seems increasingly likely that human lifespan will continue to elongate, that there is no hard and fast rule that says you must become ill at 70 or 80 and die at 90 or 100. That number
if you're
can be
lucky.
pushed. Yeah, if you're lucky, totally. And there's plenty of other organisms on the planet that live much longer than that, right? So there's nothing baked into our biology that says our lifespans must be what they are. And so I'm not ashamed to admit that I got into this and was like, what supplements will help me live longer and rewind my biological clock? And now we're taking one of them. But that impulse to try and extend your lifespan seems to cut against this Zen acceptance of the inevitability of death, which is our question today.
Indeed, it does.
Does it?
I mean, here's the thing. I don't think that the idea of prolonging your life necessarily does that. I think that the only thing that really, except this idea that you can, so I think the idea that you could just not die, that the inevitability of death is no longer inevitable, that is an idea that I just haven't wrapped my head around yet, right? I'm all about the prolonging your life, trying to avoid getting diseases, taking care of your body, treating it like a temple, doing all of that. But I still feel like it's the realm of science fiction that we'll be able to have a say over whether or not we die. That just seems like it defies physics to me.
If you don't have to go all the way there, just go to elongation. And even not that, but just look at the current state of medical, practice here in the US, where when people get old, they go through increasingly brutal regimens of treatments that destroys their quality of life in order to add an extra year or two in surviving cancer, say, right? The way that we deal with the breakdown of the body in old age is to stave it off and stave it off and stave it off as long as we possibly can, rather than accepting the inevitability of death. And often that means that people have miserable few years left at the end of their lives. That system doesn't seem pretty to me. And I think a more Buddhist perspective that embraces the inevitability of death would probably lead to a lot more happiness for people who are going through that process. But the other thing you can look at is what religious traditions have for a long time done, which is deny death in a sense by granting immortality in heaven, etc. And if you're a person who believes in that, one of my fundamental critiques of that worldview has always been that it devalues your time here on Earth. And that if you are, by comparison, looking at in near infinite or infinite immortality up in the realms beyond, then it leads people to do crazy things like jihad, right? Where like your decisions here, like who cares what pain or suffering or things that you might sense or feel in this life if the reward promised is so much greater in comparison. And
yeah,
so
at the same time, though, there is the promise of hell. So, like, the way that you get around that is like, oh, you have to do good stuff when you're living this life right now because the immortal part of your life is going to be way worse unless you follow our rules.
So another fake
that's
thing
the way
to
you get around
the
that.
first fake thing, yeah.
Yes. There's also eternal suffering. Yeah, so, all right. I am on, so here's where I stand on all of this. I feel like we absolutely should pursue the kinds of science that would allow people to live the best quality of life for as long as possible. I do fear, however, that same kind of mindset could lead to that deeply, deeply sad and painful denial of death when it is happening. Like the whole like the whole system of like what you said, of prolonging a life for a few months or a year, but having that life be one in which it is filled with, incredible amounts of suffering due to certain amounts of treatment, but also fundamentally on this like idea that we're not like getting ready to die. Like that's the thing that really that I regret about our culture is that it seems like it's just the common practice is to hide death and pretend that it's not happening and be in denial about it and to never actually openly talk to a dying person about the fact that they're dying and what that means.
And instead you both live in this white lie that you're going to make it.
Yeah, you're going to feel better soon.
And even if you don't believe in heaven, you believe in the promise of medicine, even when you both know that it's kind of futile.
Exactly. And that really is regrettable in my opinion. And I feel like I want, like when I look down at, at the barrel of my own mortality, I want to I want to feel really thoughtful and prepared for that moment. And I want to be able to communicate that preparedness to the people who are going to live on without me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, I'm especially concerned about what it would mean for our kids for us to stop existing.
Yeah.
And I feel like the idea of not taking existence for granted and like embracing the experience of leaving existence is just, it seems like a missed opportunity. And so while I'm all about like being healthy as long as humanly possible, I'm still like really thoughtful about affirming that death is an important thing
and yet
to
you
experience.
Say things to me like, don't you die on me.
Well, so part of that is because I am extremely unprepared for you to die on me, right? Like there's many a thing that would be utterly unresolved were either of us to die on each other. So I think that I guess the thing that's also really important is
you're
I
like,
do
what
think
are the
about
passwords to the crypto is what you're
Yes, exactly. Like I've brought this up multiple times and you still haven't given me the passwords to our cryptocurrency. But hey man, like one of us could get into a car accident tomorrow. Like I think about that all the time and like and it is an important part of the way that I live my life. Like, I'm especially conscious of that when it comes to our kids. Like, I never want the last memory that my kid to have of me to be a negative one. Like, I always want like all of our interactions, even if they're, not always positive. Like, we had a moment like this last night where Eureka wasn't sharing her pretzels with baby Echo, and I sort of like had a stern talking with her about sharing, and it led to like tears, but then I like really worked to like reestablish connection and to reaffirm a loving embrace of this human being despite feelings of frustration. And like that's like very intentional on my part, in part because I'm hyper aware of my mortality all the time. Like, I don't know if you think about your mortality as much as I do. I think about it every day.
I don't. Why do you think about it so much? Was that always true? Did prison change that for you, or did Meredith's death
definitely
change
my
that?
roommate just being raped and murdered all of a sudden had something to do with that. Yeah. Like, once you've been like that close to like, oh, you were just going about your life, like, and then someone like murdered somebody, like you could die at any moment. Like, that's just something that I think about all the time. And I think about your death, and I think about my death, and I think about our kids' death. I think about my mom's death. I think about lots of people's death all the time, coming from a place of like utter terror. Like, it's just so real to me. It's so real to me that like death is a part of life. And I think that that's really a foundational principle of how I think about the world. And so while on the one hand, like you read Lifespan and you're telling me all this great stuff about longevity, and, shout out to our patron Cannon, who's also always talking to us about longevity and, giving me like hopeful ideas about how we can all age differently than our parents or our grandparents did. All of that's all fine and dandy. And for me, like, death is like still right there. It's so present for me, which is why Halloween is such a great holiday for me. Because like I actually even thought that we should do a little altar to the people we've known who have passed with Eureka and Echo in a kind of like Day of the Dead sort of way.
You want to do some cultural appropriation is what you're saying.
Yeah, I want to culturally appropriate this tradition that is like, I think so valuable.
I think it's a great idea. Yeah. And it's one of the things that I think Dia de los Muertos gets right, that has kind of been stripped away from our Americanized Halloween. And I think in its earlier incarnation and All Saints Day and All Hallows Eve, like it used to be more about that. And it's now about, Frankenstein and witches and spooky things. And the idea of like really staring death in the face in an important way is less a part of it. Although it's still there a little bit, which is why I still like it. And it's an important holiday in our pantheon of holidays because it's the one that really does get the closest to looking at death. I was going to ask you if you do this thing on airplanes, which I do, which is almost every time the plane is taking off, I have a little thought it runs through my head that goes, well, this could be it.
Yeah, 100%. I get on airplanes a lot, and every single time,
which is funny because you don't do it when you go to the grocery store in the car, but you're statistically more likely to die that way, right?
It's true. Yeah, but every time there's a little like turbulence, I'm just like, well, this could be it.
But it's not said in terror in my mind. It's more, maybe if the plane actually started really rumbling and a wing fell off and it was falling, I would feel differently. Yes. But at least in those moments, I'm not thinking of it with terror, but more in a place of equanimity. And my relationship with death hasn't been informed by close personal sudden tragedy the way yours has. But I would honestly say my experience with psychedelics has changed my relationship with death, because in some very important, real sense, I've died in those experiences. My ego died, at least temporarily. And I've felt what it feels like to not be, if that even makes sense, right? If you haven't done this thing, it's going to, my words are not really going to register. But the ego death that you can get through psychedelics, or that you can get through prolonged meditation, or through, runner's high, there's various ways that people can achieve this like sense of the self totally receding. And there's still experience, there's still sensation, but there's not the I. And that feeling, I think, changes, like knowing that feeling more and more changes my relationship with the idea of death, to the point where I'm much more okay with it, I think. And yet,
are you okay with it though? Because it feels like there's some part of you that is still existing. It's just not you. Because like the thing for me is like, I'm just this whole thing that's happening right here is just going to stop one day, and it's just going to be nothing.
Well, I also just think about, it helps me to have a kind of cosmic perspective too, in the sense that like, at some point, the sun is going to go supernova. At some point, there's going to be the heat death of the universe, and you rewind before that, and the earth will be unlivable, and rewind before that, and humanity will probably destroy itself, and rewind before that, and I'm going to die of something, right? And so I look at all that as, even if you can't extend it, it's a kind of inevitable truth that everything ends, right? And if everything ends, then what are you fighting? You're just fighting reality at that point.
Mm-hmm. So I do think that knowing that I'm going to die one day makes me more conscious about like living my life to the best of my ability and being a good person. And the fact that I know that other people are going to die has that impact on me as well. Like the idea that like there is a limited scope of this person's existence, and I don't even know how limited it is. Like,
yeah,
it could be
every time
in
you have
the
dinner with
very real
somebody.
sense.
Yeah.
Well, in the very real sense that I knew somebody who then stopped existing. Like, I was a part of that person's like last days on Earth without even realizing it. And like, how many times are any of us a part of someone else's last days on existence without even realizing it? And like, if you realize that any single person that you are interacting with could just die tomorrow, it changes the way that you think about any kind of interaction that you have with them. Like, if you want to actually have a positive impact in the world, like, be there the last day that someone exists and just be nice to them.
Yeah, I mean, one of
man.
the interesting social consequences of this longevity stuff is that if we truly are able to dramatically expand our lifespans, one potential and perhaps likely consequence is that people will become much more cautious. Because if the only way you can die is through accident, right? Like right now, we all know we've got a term limit coming anyway. And so people go skydiving, they do all kinds of things, But if you knew that barring accident, you could live forever or live to be 500,
people might not go skydiving anymore.
Yeah.
Huh.
Right. One metaphor that has been meaningful to me is just the idea of, a book or a movie that I love. And would I want it to be twice as long, 3 times as long, 1,000 times as long? And the answer is almost always no. Like, I love The Princess Bride for just as long as it is. It's a perfect movie, and it doesn't need to be twice as long. And there's plenty of books that I've read that I've thought, that book was good, but it was too long. And it could have been 70% as long.
Okay,
right?
but hold on. One could say that you are middle-aged, right? Like,
oh, sure.
It's not inconceivable that you might die at 84. People die
Totally.
at 84.
Yeah.
So you might be halfway through your life right now.
More than halfway. Yeah.
Or more than halfway. Is twice as much as what you've had already the right amount? Because I still feel a little bit, that our lifespan isn't quite long enough.
No, I hear
I'm of
you.
those like longevity people that are like, no, I really do feel like the proper amount of
It's more
time
like 150.
is like
What?
200 years,
Yeah.
because then like we finally have, once you finally have had like some really, life has happened to you by the time you're 80. And then you
Mm-hmm.
just die without like being able to put all of that like wisdom
I know it's a
and
shame that your wisdom finally hits a peak when your like physical ability to do anything with it is basically gone.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's a shame.
Well, this is
And
why I
so
think that the gerontocracy is a problem, that we were ruled by a bunch of people in their 70s and 80s. And like the wisdom goes up by that point, but cognitive decline has like deeply set in after your 60s. And your ability to multitask and to handle complex problems goes way down. Your memory goes way down. You don't want people that old if under current sort of health trends and cognitive decline trends, like in charge of important things,
so this
right?
is where I'm like more on the side of denying some of the five remembrances. Like I could conceive of a world without old age and without illness. That still doesn't mean that I'm not going to have a good life. Like I don't feel like I have to accept illness and like the cognitive decline
The
and like
Buddha didn't
physical
have
decline.
our modern medicine, like,
Right,
but
right.
you
And
still
like
think that death is a bridge that can't be transcended,
well,
you
I
know?
think that the idea of not existing anymore is important to having a good life. Like I think that as soon as you take life for granted, then you start, I do think that the idea that you live forever does take away from your ability to live like a truly thoughtful and like grateful life. Like I really do feel that way. But I don't think that like we need illness and old age to like
You know
have
what?
that.
I'm going to do you one better. I think you could get rid of the illness and old age. You could get rid of death. And what's the last one again? It's
No,
what your
there's two
actions.
more. So the two more is that everyone
I know.
else
So
is permanent.
number 4 is the one that I think is the one that really matters. That I am of the nature of change, and everything changes, and that everyone else is of the nature of change too, because change is really what matters, and that's where the attachment comes in, right? Like if you just acknowledge to yourself, if you deeply accept that your status quo right now, whatever makes you comfortable, is going to be different later, and that the thing you value about right now is going to be gone. Even if you live forever, change is always going to keep happening. And relationships that you've treasured will disintegrate, if not due to sudden death and tragedy, then due to other reasons when people drift apart or a rift forms, right? Your favorite dessert is no longer going to be manufactured by by Mars and Co. Whatever it is, like life is going to keep changing. And if you accept that, that is really the essence of like what the old age one is about. It's just another form of change. It's accepting that your youthful vitality you have now is going to be different later. And it might be the case that an accident hampers you, or that something else, or that global economic concerns are what reshapes your future and your possibilities and things. And when your life looked really hopeful and full of possibility, it's not just because you were young and your muscles were fit and your brain was active and now you're old and not, but because now there's a war raging across the continent you live on, right? So like that kind of thing happens all the time to humans. And if you accept that, I feel like it encompasses things like what the old age and death are really getting at. To go back to my, how long should a movie be thing, the way I've applied that metaphor is I've often thought like, and I've had this thought in a dark period, and trigger warning, suicide. Call the suicide hotline if anyone is thinking about suicide. We don't encourage it. But at a period when I was having some suicidal ideation, I was thinking to myself, like, does my life need to last 80 years? Couldn't I walk out of the movie theater now? Like, why does a good thing have to keep on going on and on and on and on? Can't a thing be good and limited? And I
I
think
love how
about
you were
that,
like, my life is good, but why? Like, why keep doing it? Like, it's not even, you were not even sad. You were just like, it's good. I'm
well,
out. Like,
yes, I mean, it's a kind of nihilism of just like, why must something just continue and continue for its own sake? And I think the acceptance of death is very related to that. It's just like things not only don't have to last forever, but they just don't. And the change one is the one that really captures that like nothing is permanent. Everything is impermanent, just due to the nature that it's dynamic, it's changing.
every moment is a change. And so every moment is precious. Um,
And so if life's always changing, why not have a changing, mutable life that just continues indefinitely?
so here's the one thing. So the last of the remembrances is that your actions are basically the only thing that's like permanent in the sense that like you cannot escape their consequences. And the longer you live, the more actions you will have taken, and therefore
Mm-hmm.
the more consequences you will have accumulated and experienced. Ideally, what that would mean is that you learn to take good actions that result in karmic consequences that don't lead to your own suffering. And so maybe you get better and better at doing that as you get older. Like, I think like one of these like tragedies of existence is that like by the time you figure out like how not to make like a certain kind of mistake, you're like, it's too late for you to have gone back and not to have made the mistake, you know?
Youth is wasted on the young. You've heard that, right?
Yes, youth is wasted on the young. Like, come on, give me some youth that I won't waste or that won't get wasted by someone else. I didn't get to live my 20s. Why can't I get my 20s back? I want my 20s in my 80s.
I mean, I wonder if there's an inherent link there, though. Like the idea that the wisdom that you have when you're old, if only you could have that when you were young and virile. Like maybe it's the fact of being young and virile that makes you feel more immune to consequence, and that actually prevents you from accumulating wisdom in some
Nah,
important sense. No?
nah, no. I mean, I think that's maybe a guy thing because I think that women are more aware of our fragility than men are. I think it's true that maybe young men feel like they're invincible, but that's not how women feel. Women do not feel invincible
That's true.
ever. So,
Well, have we settled on some kind of consensus here that you could, as long as you accept change, then
yeah.
it's okay to pursue methods to live forever? Or does
Yeah.
that quest? This is I mean, this is a worry for me too. Is like even thinking about this, I've worried like you have that it will lessen my appreciation of the present moment. It will the things that the important perspective that keeping death in mind gives me for appreciating life will be lessened in some notable way if I
I mean,
take
here's the
measures to
thing. Like, I
pursue
don't
immortality.
actually know because I cannot, as of yet, be convinced that death is inevitable. Like, you can talk me down this like train of thought that like maybe old age and illness might become inevitable, but I'm still just like hard
Are you
pressed
trying to
to.
say the opposite of what you're saying? You said maybe old age and death are inevitable. Do you mean the opposite of that?
Yeah, so that I know, like I'm saying that like you can potentially convince me that old age and illness are evitable, right? Are
Yes, evitable.
evitable.
Sure.
And but I just can't like I'm not a like if I'm really asking myself, do I believe that it is humanly possible for anything that exists to not exist anymore? I can't wrap my head around that.
To not
Like
not
from
exist anymore.
right. To me, death is not one of those things that is inevitable or that is evitable. It is inevitable. Death is inevitable in my brain still. And so
what about uploading your consciousness to the, to a computer?
I also don't know if that is, I mean, that may be something in the future, but I do not think that that is something that is relevant to me. I'm hard pressed to think that we will be capable of that.
That's a big disagreement between us. I definitely think that's going to be possible. That's what they in the AI and superintelligence world call substrate independence. The idea that consciousness, there's nothing special about the meat computer.
No, I'm not saying that there's anything special
right?
about it. I'm saying that I don't think that we're going to be physically capable of it. Maybe down the line in our children's or children's like lifetimes.
That's not
I
what
just don't think that
AI
we are.
Scientists think. Their estimates for when that will be possible are it's not 100 years from now.
Okay,
but of course,
well,
yeah.
maybe not. I still feel like the idea that like I'm still very much attached to the idea
to your own death,
to everyone's death. That like at any point it could be my last day or someone that I'm interacting their last day.
Well, that's still true from accident, even if you can end this sort of disease of aging, right?
All I'm saying is that that is an important part of my philosophical outlook in life because it is a deeply felt truth to me. And I struggle with I just find it really hard to imagine having a mindset where that isn't like a deeply, deeply ingrained part of my belief system.
I hear you. I mean, what do you think of guys like Brian Johnson? This guy, he's the entrepreneur, venture capitalist guy who's been trying to essentially be the youngest biological person he can be to live forever, right? He does all kinds of crazy experimental treatments on himself.
Yeah, I mean, I'm grateful to him for being the guinea pig to do all of these experimental treatments. Do I think he's going to die one day? Yeah.
I mean, what do you imagine that pursuit does to your mind state?
I don't know. I don't know if he's a jerk. I mean, I think that if anything, I think that he's thinking about death a lot because he is specifically devoting his life to conquering it. So in a way, he, more than anyone else, is obsessed with death. And is taking it very seriously, which is why he's very seriously attempting to conquer it. That would be my sort of imagination of what it would be like to talk to him as a person, is like how aware he is. And like in the way, what he's doing is really kind of noble. Like a lot of people sort of make fun of him. Like, oh, this like Looney Tune thinks that he can defy death because he's a billionaire. What a asshole. But honestly, like if you really think about it, like he's just making a guinea pig of himself, and anyone could benefit from the discoveries that he makes. And like he doesn't know for sure that any of the things that he is doing are going to lead to positive outcomes. And in fact, like something recently, didn't he like take a thing that actually like aged him more, what he thought was going to de-age him,
yeah.
And then he aged him more. So like he's like in like wild frontier land and using his very own life as an experiment just to see what is humanly possible with what the science and the technology that we have available today. So I'm not on the same train that everyone else is on, making fun of him. I actually think that what he's doing is both like on a individual way, like it can be selfish and selfless at the same time. Like he can want to live forever himself, and he can know that like whatever discoveries he makes along the way could actually benefit us all.
So there's another angle to this for me, which is a kind of hedonist angle. And that comes up when I look at what the research shows on things you can do today, right now, that are likely to prolong your lifespan.
Stop drinking alcohol.
Yeah, stop drinking alcohol, right? Exercise more. There's good research that calorie restriction, either total or the form of intermittent fasting, increases longevity. Studies in mice show this. There's information, or there's studies that show that various forms of stress on your organism promote longevity. And so one form of stress is like temperature stress. So be cold enough that you shiver. Take a cold shower, go for a brisk run in the cold air, etc. Another is just hypoxic, like oxygen stress. So like work out in a kind of this is why HIIT, high intensity interval training, is recommended for longevity, because you're pushing your oxygen stress, your heart rate stress to a point where you're just literally out of breath. It's different than burning the same amount of calories through casual walking for a longer number of hours, right? That said, I don't want to take cold showers. I don't, if that's worth a year of my life and I have to take a cold shower every day, I'm just not doing it.
Are you serious? You would give up a year of life because you feel icky about cold water?
I like hot water. I mean, is it 10 years? I might do it for 10 years. But, is it a guarantee? Because a bus could also hit me tomorrow. That remains true.
You're like, where did all my currency in cold showers go when that bus hit me?
Cold showers don't protect you from the bus or the school shooting or whatever crazy thing it is, the earthquake. So when you look at the kind of life you are living, and this brings us back to that old age chemo treatments kind of thing, adding another year to your life in exchange for undergoing radiation and pumping poison into your body and all that. Is it so much different to be constantly getting blood transfusions and having weird medical tests done on your body to try and prolong your life? Because in some sense, Brian Johnson has chosen for himself a life filled with such procedures, right? Which is,
it's not like chemotherapy. It's not like he's undergoing chemotherapy. Like, if anything,
no, it's
I think
more like the cold shower equivalent of just like a series of inconveniences, right?
But you get used to cold showers. Like,
you're not doing them.
It's true. I'm not doing them. I love a hot shower.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that you could get used to all right. Well, I feel like we've talked about this.
Yes, we've circled the drain of our own mortality.
I feel like we have. Death is not necessarily whack, but not necessarily necessary. Maybe. I don't know. It still feels pretty inevitable. But is it necessary? It
reminds me of that, there's a poem I really love. It's my favorite 2-line poem. I think it's by a guy named John Frederick Nims, called Love and Death. And it goes, and yet the kiss, like blubber, would blur and slip without the assuring skull beneath the lip. Right? And just like that death is this bedrock upon which like the joys of life rest upon. Which is that he puts it in such a visceral way there. So I don't know. Regardless of if we reach a conclusion here, I think I'm going to try to be thinking about our own mortality at the end of October here. And
I'm just going to continue thinking about it every day like I do. All right. Thank you for joining us on Who's Right. If you have any questions that you would like us to debate and discuss, please send them in. We will, if you're a subscriber, we're obviously going to prioritize your questions. And if you have any thoughts about whether or not we're right or wrong on this, tell us about it. I'm looking at you, Cannon.
Does death come for us all? Are we fools to try to avoid it?
Do we live life less fulfillingly?
Yeah. amandaknox.substack.com for any questions or comments, or on amandaknox.com. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Don't die.